I'm Hayley. I'm based in Cardiff, and I work for a church called Highfields Church. I'm training to think about leadership in the next few years. And I'm actually from Southampton, so it's nice to be on home turf for the next week. Thanks so much for having me.
We might have mixed opinions about Southampton. I guess, what's your favourite thing, being someone from here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd be interested to know what other people's are, so please tell me if you have a good answer to this. I quite like that you get the city, but you also aren't far away from the sea. So if you want to go to the beach, you're not too far away. That was always quite a nice thing. You feel like you can escape. And actually, that's quite similar to Cardiff. So, yeah, I feel like I've done well in both of those places. But yeah, tell me what your favourite things are at the end. I'm interested to know.
Great. Take it away.
Great, fab. Thank you guys so much for coming to this lunchtime talk today. Please feel free to carry on eating. And as Silas said, if you head to slido.com and enter this code, feel free to put in any questions that you get as I'm speaking, and we'll have a little bit of time to answer those at the end. This week the CU have opened up an opportunity to explore some of life's biggest questions and find out together where freedom might be found. And this lunchtime, we're starting our search together with a fundamental question: who am I? The question of identity is huge in our culture today. Whether we realize it or not, we're all on a quest to define ourselves. But the search hasn't always been the way that it is at the moment. At one time, identity was formed by looking to the community around us. The community made decisions that would be mutually beneficial for the whole of the community, so most of life's big questions were already answered. Where we'd live, what we'd do, who we'd marry, and basic beliefs were set for us. So the shape of people's lives was constrained, and many people could answer questions of identity by thinking of their place within their family or their role in society. But today, we live in a world that is totally unconstrained, where we can decide the answers to all of these questions and more, all for ourselves. Our culture tells us to be true to yourself and follow your heart. We don't need to look at others, it's all about me. I am totally free to set my own path and be whoever I want to be without the burden of the community. I can follow my own rules and defy the expectations of others. And how do we do this? Well, we look within. And the queen of this modern day mantra, quite literally, is our old friend Elsa, ruler of Arendelle, made famous by the film Frozen. With her smash hit anthem, Let It Go, she expressed the inner longings of a generation to throw off the burdens of other people's expectations and be herself. As she threw off the gloves, the tight hairdo, and the cloak as symbols of the restraints of others, she screamed, I'm free. And like Elsa, our Western culture encourages us to look within to find answers to questions of identity. In our own hearts, we find answers to questions like, what sets me apart from others? What do I love? What do I believe, and what do I value? And in the answers, we find out who we are, and if not, who we want to be. We rejoice at transformations like Elsa's, where we see people defy the burdens of others around them and define who they want to be in whatever way they see best. We celebrate those who finally feel free to express themselves, and many of us look back to the constraints of the past with concern. We love the fact that we can be whoever we want to be, all by our own choices. But deeper than the question of who am I, there is an issue that we have to face. Because while we might be able to be whoever we want to be, are we really secure in that? When we're asked the question, who are you? Or what makes you unique? Are we confident in the answer? Do we feel like ice queens belting out, let it go? Or are we left feeling insecure, doubting ourselves, and wondering what it is that gives us worth? Back in 2019, the New York Times wrote an article entitled, Emma Thompson Gets a Shock at 60. The actress is famous for her roles in films like Nanny McPhee, Love Actually, recently Miss Trunchbull in Matilda, if any of you have seen that. And on reaching her 60th birthday, she hit a crisis. All her life, she knew who she was and was so sure of it. She was defined by the roles she played in life and the parts she took up in films. But as she's gotten older, her children have moved out, she's aged, and her roles have changed. She's left wondering, am I any of those things? Emma says in the article, the eternal question, which I never thought I'd ask, is, who am I? She continued, I was always so sure. As it turns out, I have no idea. For Emma, while she had built a confident sense of self on deeply personal values and roles in her family, when life changed, all of these things were thrown in the air. She isn't sure anymore who she is and what defines her. The places she's always looked to aren't there anymore. The lighthouse on the sea of identity that she's always looked to has crumbled into the sea, and now she's lost and unsure where to look for a safe place to rest. Like Emma, many of us want to feel confident in ourselves, but we too can regularly have those moments of thinking, who am I really? And when these moments inevitably come, our first option is to search within again, to look inward to find that secure foundation. I saw a clip from an interview with Rihanna just this week where she was asked, what do you do on those days when you don't feel confident? And she replied hesitantly, pretend? I mean, why not? It's either that or cry myself to sleep. In her answer to this question, Rihanna reveals the problem for all of us. Looking within can't provide us with what we're looking for. We just end up going round in a circle of insecurity, masked over with a fake confidence. We've got nowhere to go when we feel insecure in ourselves. Looking inwards is a lonely and unhelpful place because we can't find the certainty we're looking for there. And alongside that lack of confidence, we're also presented with a host of other issues. The first is our constant need for validation. Because we've built our identity and therefore our sense of worth on deeply personal ideas, we're never quite sure if they're true. So we spend our lives looking for an outside source to affirm them. Our perspectives on our beauty and attractiveness are increased or decreased, depending on the number of likes and comments we receive on an Instagram post. Our identity as a sportsman is reliant upon others affirming our ability through awards and recognition. Our identity as the next great thinker of our generation is linked to our ability to get a first-class grade stamped on our work. And all of this leads to a pressure to maintain our identity before others, and an intense need to prove ourselves. We even fall into the trap of comparison in order to feel confident that we're enough. We look at the person next to us in the club to feel more or less confident in our body and beauty. We work tirelessly at the essay to ensure we get the affirmation we need and beat the rest. We keep working out to maintain and make sure that we get picked for the sports team. And the pressure leads us to filter our lives, only sharing the good grades, only posting the beautiful photos, ignoring and suppressing the failure. None of us are really able to be true to ourselves because we all have that fear that if someone saw that part, they wouldn't want to know us. So at the bottom, we're left anxious and insecure and even more confused about who we are. While we want to be free to be ourselves, like Elsa, we're trapped. We're left out in the cold, isolated from others, with niggling doubts that maybe we're not enough. We've created an incredibly insecure foundation for our lives, and for all the freedom to be who we want to be, we're less confident than we've ever been. It's not because looking within is wrong. There is good in finding peace with who we are, but on its own, it isn't enough, and on our own, we can't find it. We need someone from outside to tell us who we are and to affirm the good things we see in ourselves and talk us out of the bad. We need to find a trustworthy source whose perspectives won't keep changing like ours often do. And only one person can live up to this. And in that comes the answer to this lunchtime question: what does God think of us? I wonder how you would answer that question. Maybe you think he's indifferent to you. Maybe you think he's inconvenienced by you. Maybe you actually think he's proud of you. Or maybe some of you think, who cares? What gives God the right to even have an opinion on me? Well, like a potter has a view on the clay that he's formed, or an author has a judgment on the character she's written, God has an answer to this question: what do you think of us? Because he made us. And this is fundamental to the ways that we view our value and worth. So what does he say? Right at the beginning, in the book of Genesis, we hear his words. Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. We're told that God made us like himself. Like a baby takes on some of the features and traits of its parents, so all people have been intentionally created to reflect something of who God is. We are all small representations of him. But why is that so profound? How does that speak into the question of who we are and what God thinks of us? Well, in the ancient world, it was common that statues or figures of gods would be placed into temples to represent the God who people would come to worship there. And it wasn't just lifeless statues that could do this, but also pharaohs and kings. These people were considered to have a special significance and a special relationship with the gods. Their title of living image of God was a mark of their unique worth. But God doesn't reserve that right for kings. Instead, every single person who has ever and will ever walk this earth is created in his image, given royal status. And so before we've even begun to work or provide for other people or achieve anything, we are instilled with value. Do you see how this is different to the places we so often look? To maintain confidence in our identity, we have to keep achieving, keep being better than others, constantly receive new validation, and keep working. And even so, we easily fall back into insecurity again when we have a bad day or when another person is better than us. But this status from God is given to us as a gift. So it can't change depending on the day or our behavior or someone else's opinion, because it was never dependent on anything we did. We were given an identity that can't be altered. This is the only foundation for a belief in our value as humans outside of our achievements. Without it, we are stuck in insecurity. But with this foundation, we are transformed. This reality gives each of us great dignity in knowing that we've been made purposefully, instilled with value. We're free from the pressure to spend our lives trying to become more like someone else, trying harder to be anyone but me, or trying to prove we matter. In God, our life pursuit is not how do I become someone better, but how do I become the truest version of me that God has created? How do I put to use all the experiences and insights and ideas and creativity he has given me? But as we saw at the beginning, we don't know that immense value in our day-to-day. Most of us aren't living in that reality, but one of our own making. We don't know or care what God thinks of us. We try to define who we are on our own terms and end up feeling flat. A bit like how the further you walk from a mirror, the harder it is to see your true self, instead only seeing a reflection of dull colors and strange shapes. The further we've walked from God, the harder it is to see and experience the value he has given us. We've tried to look at other things to define who we are. Maybe likes and comments on Instagram, or performance on the sports team, or good grades on assignments, maybe even relationship status or family background. But that's like replacing the mirror with a murky puddle that not only can't reflect who we are, but shows us something ugly and distorted. Our quest to find freedom to express who we are by finding answers within has led us to think that we're far less wonderful than we actually are. We've tried to find freedom to be who we are in places that can't actually give us a satisfying answer. Rather than getting a clearer, truer picture, the more we look to other things, the more our identity is marred. We start to look a bit less like our Creator and a bit more like the other things we look at. And on a good day, when we've completed our reps at the gym or won the rugby match or aced the grade, we can say, I think I'm great. But on the days when the results aren't so cheery, how do we answer then? How do we experience the reality of our value in God? It's not just that we need to turn up the voice of God or pretend other people aren't speaking. We need to be remade, to get back to the reality that God created in the beginning. We need to have the mess that is there wiped away and the reality of our identity made real to us again. And that's exactly what God has done for us. He entered into our world over 2,000 years ago in the person of Jesus. You can read about it in one of these books on your tables. Jesus came into this world as the perfect man with the lived experience that we have lost. Where we walked further from God and had his image in us distorted, he walked closer than anyone ever has and perfectly reflected what it meant to be made perfectly in the image of his Creator. And he came to give us a fresh start. Rather than bring reality to our fears in rejecting us, Jesus sees all of our real selves and offers us a chance to be made new. He knows the very depths of us, and we cannot filter any of that out. But instead of wanting to mark us out as worthless, he wants to do the opposite in making us aware of our value and loveliness to him. He knows just how much there is to clean up, and he still does it. Rather than disposing of us, he offers a way for us to be cleaned up and made new. And to start that work of creation again and do away with the mess and distortion, Jesus dies. He takes the penalty for our distortions, and in return, the way is opened for us to be made new, so that those who come to trust and follow are called new creations and given new birth. We're so radically transformed that it's as though we literally started life again from the beginning, cleansed of all the distortions, reflecting the image of God that we were always meant to. It sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? It sounds too good to be true, because it's so far removed from all the ways we think of ourselves. But it's true. Today there is a God at work in the world who looks at you with pride and joy, because he made you as a beautiful reflection of all his perfection, and has made a way for the mud of the puddle to be wiped clean and for you to see what he sees. This is where freedom is found. Not in trying to invent ourselves in a vacuum, suppressing all our insecurities and trying to make our way alone, but when we embrace the reality God has given to us. When we turn from ourselves and towards Jesus, recognizing the errors of trying to make value for ourselves, and are remade into the people we were always meant to be. So today, as you listen here, what should you do with what you've heard? Let me suggest that if it's truly what God thinks of you, you should look to find out more. If there is a place for you to find a confident, unchanging identity, instilled with a deep sense of worth, wouldn't you like to know more? Wouldn't it make a difference to the way you saw yourself? The way you worked? Your future choices? Your relationships? All of your life? As you head off from here this afternoon, ask yourself, what difference would it make to know this reality in my life? You can also take home one of these books that will be on your table. You can find out more about Jesus, the one who's come to restore us. And we also have a whole host of opportunities to continue to explore the reality of this question over the next few days. This evening, we're looking at what it means to find freedom when we're not sure who we are. Silas will give us a little bit more information about that. And do stick around if you can. We'll have an opportunity to answer some of your questions as well. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Hayley. We're going to give you a few minutes to discuss on your tables, send in questions, and we'll try and get through a few, ask Hayley what she thinks. So if you do have any questions, send them in. We'll try and get through them. If you could bring those conversations to a close, do continue them after we've asked these questions. Hayley, the first question is, what does God think when we do bad things?
Okay. So what does God think when we do bad things? It is a great question. We often refer to God as our Father, and I think thinking about the way that our parents love us can often be a helpful way to think about this question. But I'm sure we've all experienced when we kind of disappoint or do bad things, we often, our parents can be disappointed with us. There's a part of them that wish that we hadn't chosen to do those things that were harmful. But their opinion of us doesn't change. Our value to them remains, their love for us remains. And that's how God sees us, but in a much more perfect way. It's not like his value and his kind of perspective on us goes up and down depending on our behavior. If that was true, it would be just like all the other ways that we try to find value. And the whole kind of radical point of this is to say God has always loved us, and he instilled that value in us right at the beginning, knowing that many of us would wander away, knowing that many of us would do harmful things, and yet still choosing to say, you're worth everything to me. And also that's kind of affirmed to us in the story of Jesus. I haven't gone into the full detail of it, but we believe Jesus died for us, for the things that we've done wrong. And that in itself is a picture of how God doesn't want to turn his back on us when we've done wrong things, but give us an opportunity to come back to him, to be restored to him, to be brought into right relationship with him again. So please don't think that his opinion is changed in those things. Of course, he wants us to be changed. I think that's a really important thing to stress, that we can't stay as we are. We want to grow and become, be made better and good, and God wants to help us in that work. But he chooses to love us because we're his children, and that's his view on us. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. You said we can't find fulfillment, or we don't find fulfillment in sports teams or societies. But I guess why is that the case? And on the flip side, how can we know that we can find value in Jesus? Why is that the only way?
That's a great question. I guess the point I want to make is that you can find fulfillment in those things for a short time. We're actually having a talk on this later in the week as well. So if you're around on Thursday evening, please come back, because we're going to talk about this question, especially of fulfillment. We can be temporarily fulfilled by those things. All of us could recall times in our lives when we've, had a great sports match, had a great holiday, insert whatever you want to here. But the point is that it's only temporary, and we're constantly going around in a cycle trying to find more things. When that moment kind of fizzles out, we need to fill it up again. The fulfillment runs out. We need to be fulfilled again. And when we come to Jesus, that stops happening because we're fulfilled completely and we're not stuck in a cycle anymore. So things can fall into the place that they're meant to. We can enjoy the sports game, for example, without the pressure of feeling like I have to prove my worth here, because we go into it knowing I am worthwhile whether I win or lose. We can go into our studies knowing I don't have to prove my worth here. I can enjoy it as much as that's possible. I can give my best to it, but I can know that at the end of the day, if I pass or fail, my value isn't changed. And that's the massive difference. And we want to commend to you that there's a better way of living than that. You don't have to live in this constant cycle of wondering whether you're valuable or not. You can come to know it with certainty, because God has given us that certainty. If you want to know more, please do take home one of those books. Read the stories of Jesus. Find out for yourself if you're convinced or not. I haven't even given you half the story, and we'd really love this to be the beginning of an opportunity for you to explore.
One last one. You've said God loves us and God values us, and Jesus died for us. If that is the case, why does he often feel so distant or absent in our lives?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that. That's a really, really helpful question. I guess as Christians, our belief in God is based on faith. And there's a step that we take where we don't have the kind of we don't have the sight at the moment. We don't literally physically see God, and he calls us to trust him and step out in that. And I think that's part of it, that he's not present with us in a physical way anymore. But that's what faith is. It's trusting that he is who he said he was. I think also God makes himself known to us in very physical ways. So, for example, I know that if he's created all of us with value and all of us with significance, God speaks to me and meets with me through the people that he's put around me, through the world that he's made, in all of those physical ways. And he's given us an opportunity to have relationship with him as well. I think sometimes we feel distant from God, not because he's distant, but perhaps because we can sometimes be distant, I think. And if that's something that you're kind of wrestling with at the moment, I'd love to talk more personally. I feel like that's quite a sort of a personal question for each of us. So if you'd like to talk more about that, I'd love to chat more afterwards.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that goes for any questions that haven't been asked. Hayley is around to talk to you if you would like to come and ask a question personally and have more of a discussion rather than a Q&A. That brings us to the end of our time. If you found what you've heard helpful or thought-provoking today, there's a few things you can do. Firstly, continue the conversations that you've started. Don't just let them die out as you leave here. Secondly, we're running a week of events every lunchtime from 12 to 1 till 2, and every mealtime, dinner time, not mealtime. There's no breakfast. From 7 till 8:30. So tonight we're thinking more on the theme of identity, if stuff you've heard today has interested you. Also, there is the books on your table. They are free for you to take. Maybe if someone's brought you today, you could read it with them, discuss it with them, if you would like to. Finally, if maybe you haven't come with anyone today and you've come on your own and you would like for us to be in touch with you, there are these cards at the back that you're more than welcome to fill in, and that just allows us to get in touch with you. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. Hopefully see you again soon.